today is Acting Deputy Chief Lisa Mann and Acting Deputy Chief Ryan Nishibu.
Thank you very much. And for those on the WebEx, Chief Vanek, if you could let me know who you see joining us via WebEx. I see.
Sure. I see Acting Assistant Chief Glenn Hayashi, Assistant Chief Alan Nagata,
A participant
Assistant
has
Chief
left the
Darren
meeting.
Chun. I think Major Events Division is Acting Assistant Chief Thomas Santos. I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Not here with us today is Corporation Counsel, but we are expecting them to join us at a later date. And if they do, we will note that as part of our minutes. With that, we will be opening it up to public testimony being accepted by telephone. And as we get our first testifier on the line, we will recognize written testimony received by a number of participants, and all copies have been distributed to all members of the commission in advance of this meeting. We are now trying to call testifier Bethany Schwartz.
Hello.
Hi, may I speak to Bethany Schwartz, please?
This is Bethany Schwartz.
Hi, Ms. Schwartz. My name is Shannon Olivado, calling from the Honolulu Police Commission. Thank you for your interest in participating in our meeting today. Is it a good time for you to go ahead with your public testimony?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Aloha, Commission. Thank you for your time. My name is Bethany Schwartz, and I am testifying to demand police accountability in the shooting death of Ira member Skycap and Lindani Mayani, and more recently in the May 26th shooting of the 27-year-old man in Kalihi. So in addition to police-involved shootings, on June 1st, Civil Beat reported that HPD shows a higher percentage of deaths from physical restraint in comparison to a national database. As a speech-language pathologist in the Leeward District, I often dealt with people in crisis. The district required me to do a 2-day initial training and annual retraining in nonviolent crisis intervention. The first step in these trainings was always de-escalation. How are the police trained in de-escalation in Honolulu? How are they trained to make safe restraints on someone? How often do they take refresher courses, and who is the one who certifies them? Also, to protect, because of these things, to protect the people of Hawaii against violence, I request the Commission take a strong stance to honor the public call for immediate, transparent, and independent investigation by an outside agency other than the Honolulu Police Department and the Attorney General's office. The Commission must direct HPD to release the name of officers who killed Ira member Skycap and Lindani Mayani, as well as all other police victims of violence. The selective release of body-worn cameras is not acceptable. We must have transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schwartz. Any commissioners have questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony, Ms. Schwartz. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. Next testifier, Imiloa Borland. We'll try to contact her this time.
Aloha.
Aloha, is Imiloa Borland there?
Yes.
Hi, Ms. Borland. My name is Shannon Olivado. I'm calling from the Honolulu Police Commission. Thank you for your expressing your interest to testify today. Is this a good time?
Yes.
Great, go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Aloha. The public has been losing their trust with the police with these two recent shootings of I Remember Sidecast and Lindani, Miami. Allowing for these shootings to be investigated by HPD will only continue the community's distrust. There must be a thorough, independent investigation by the FBI. Only then will the public trust the outcomes of these investigations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Borland, I'm looking around the room to see if any commissioners have questions. Seeing none, thank you very much for your participation today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. Next testifier who we will try to contact, Wayne Kaibi.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated.
Thank you. Attempts to contact Wayne Kaibi has been unsuccessful. We request that he try to testify at our next meeting. Thank you very much. Moving on, Georgia Thompson West.
Hello,
Hi, may I speak to Miss Georgia Thompson West?
this is her.
Hi, thank you for calling to testify before the Honolulu Police Commission. My name is Shannon Olivado. Go ahead and testify if you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha Police Commissioners, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to testify today. In regards to hiring the next police chief, at the very end of the last meeting, Corporate Counsel advised the board that the public normally gets to review the top candidates and weighing in on their suitability. This is in line with best practices across the country. Can the HPC confirm this will happen again and clarify any other ways that the public will be able to participate in the process? Next, I will address agenda item status of investigations that was briefed over at the last meeting. I'm a friend of friends of Lindani Manning, who was shot at HPD 7 weeks ago.
Ms. West, if I could ask you to speak
Yes.
clearly into the phone. It's a little bit difficult to hear, a little muffled.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Let me try something else. Is this better?
Yeah, that's much better. But go ahead, continue.
Okay, thank you. So in speaking about Lindani Miani and police reform in general, I have been told that because I'm not a cop, I shouldn't have a say because I don't know what it's like. And what I realize I do know some things, it turns out. Although the bulk of my career, I have worked in social services as a community advocate in areas such as domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse prevention. I also worked for a couple of years as an executive assistant for the 48th Security Forces Squadron Commander. I learned even more about the strengths and limitations of community policing during this time. I've also been a victim of crime and know how violating it feels. I have been assaulted and was burglarized twice while living in Kaimuki. The police were not able to solve these cases or provide any help, unfortunately. The father of my children is a 27-year Air Force veteran. He was a junior police trainee in high school and formerly military police in Hawaii. I know how stressful and dangerous the job of law enforcement can be. My husband had to go in early to arm up, report to guard mount, and stay late to disarm and write reports. Working 12-hour shifts, switching between day swings and mids was hard on his body and hard to find as a family, not to mention his 11 deployments to combat zones throughout the height of the war. The father of my children also happens to be Black, and we are parents of 3 beautiful biracial young adults. Statistically, this is a time in my kids' lives when they will be most vulnerable to racial profiling and excessive force from police. Knowing more about HPD's record with excessive force, particularly concerning a higher rate of use of asphyxiation that just came out in the news yesterday, I am now much more reluctant to call them for help because it might put my Black and brown loved ones at risk. Yes, in Hawaii also. There is anti-Black sentiment here, and my family has experienced it firsthand. About a year ago, my son was doing food deliveries and called me because a woman followed him and blocked him into a parking lot. He told me she called the police because she said he cut her off. He swore he didn't. My heart was racing, and I made him promise to stay on the phone with me no matter what. I kept him on the phone so that he wouldn't be alone if the police shot him. I saw his relief when the police did let him go. I later thought about how dangerous it was for him, a 6-foot-tall, 220-pound, athletic young man delivering food to random houses in the dark. He could so easily be mistaken as a threat, as well as his brother, who's a fashion model who often does photo shoots at various luxury properties around the island. After Lindani was killed, I thought about how dangerous it could be for my other son to show up at the wrong address in an upscale neighborhood and be mistaken as a threat by an irrationally terrified resident or tourist because he's Black and athletic. I gave similar testimony on May 11th to the LEOIRB, also known as the Officer Fatality Review Board, established in 2017. The board has only reviewed one of 26 cases. Their last public meeting was 1.5 years ago. As civil servants appointed to carry out state law, how is this even possible? I believe that HPD can also apply pressure to the LEOIRB to carry out their duties. For decades, HPD has been allowed to investigate these fatalities internally with no scrutiny. In 2018, investigators were banned from scenes of officer-involved shootings altogether. After the deaths of I Remember Side Captain Lindani Miani, prosecutor Steve Alm decided to open an independent investigation for the first time in 30 years. According to Chief Bannock's NCCA report at the last HPC meeting, he casually stated that HPC, the LEOIRB, and the prosecuting attorney's office are all forms of independent review, which all play integral roles that HPD maintains accountability at all levels. The almost non-existent independent review of these deaths until very recently does not equal accountability at all levels. It does not create an environment of honesty, integrity, transparency, professionalism, or build public trust. No one on the HPC questioned Chief Bannock further on this part of his briefing. Chief Bannock also referred to HPC's revised policy on the use of force issued in April, but not soon enough to prevent 2 killings that same month.
Thank you, Ms. West. If you could summarize, thank you.
Okay, my last question then. How will HPD hold HPD accountable to its own policies? I would like to conclude by encouraging the Commission to fulfill their highest ethical duty to continue to apply pressure on HPD to release the full unedited body cam and security footage in both the ICAP and Miami cases and any future cases. I am aware that Lindani was taken to the hospital and died there later. What else is on the footage of his final moments? Did he perhaps say anything? How long did HPD take to get Lindani medical care? The public deserves to know the truth. Thank you so much for listening to my testimony today.
Thank you, Ms. West. We appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon. Looking around, any further questions for Ms. West? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Can I add something? Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm looking at draft minutes that are not yet posted on the Police Commission website, but I would encourage Ms. West to, when they become available, there was a discussion that might be of interest to you May 5th. So there was the discussion about the independent reviews and the questions that the commission asked of the department. So hopefully that'll provide you with some answers. Thank you.
Those minutes aren't available yet on the website, right?
Correct. We're approving them or not today.
Okay, thank you. I will definitely look into them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Okinaga. Thank you, Ms. West. Take care. We'll now call on our last testifier, Kylie Okiona, who we also received written testimony from, which is in your packet. And also for the record, Haley Chi joined us, Corporation Counsel. Thank you very much, at 2:13 p.m., which will be recorded in the minutes.
Hello?
Hi, may I speak to Ms. Kylie Okiona?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Ms. Okiona, how are you? Thank you for
Good,
joining
how are you
us
doing?
today. Good. At the Police Commission meeting, we have received your written testimony as well. Go ahead when you are ready to start, and if you could, please not read the testimony, but provide us with your insight.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you again, Charlie Votto, Vice Chair Gibson, and Commissioners for allowing me to speak with you again. I'm just briefly going to summarize my written testimony, if that's okay with you all.
Thank you. Go
So
ahead.
I've noticed in my time attending these meetings that the public and the community are often spoken about as some kind of separate being or separate entity from the commission. And I specifically noted in the last meeting that Commissioner Okinaga referred to the commission as, quote, in the real world, and referring to a testifier who was supposedly outside of the real world, without a lack of understanding of the commission or HPD and how it works. And I also remember that Charlie Votto noted her community outreach with the Micronesian community following the death of I Remember SciCap. And I just wanted to ask what the commission's perception of community outreach is, because it seems like community outreach would insinuate that you as a commission reach out to the community proactively. Rather, it seems more like the community has to reach out to you because of a lack of proactive communication on your end. When Officer Kalama and Officer Enriquez tragically died last year in that fire in Diamond Head, our whole community grieved, regardless of our relationship to them or HPD, because we're part of the same community. When you guys enter this building, start the meeting and adjourn the meeting and leave the building, that entire time, you're still a part of our community. I recall Charlie Votto also felt insulted when accused of not having done community outreach in an ACLU of Hawaii Facebook Live, I believe it was, or in reference to that. Yet, when a testifier at one of the previous meetings asked for the commission to simply offer condolences for the death of Lindani Manny and I Remember SciCap, members of our community, like, you were unable to. You do not get to decide when being a part of the community is convenient or beneficial for you. I can still feel the loss of Officer Enriquez and Officer Kalama in the same way that I feel the loss of Lindani Manny and I Remember SciCap from our community, just like so many others. We grieve them because this is our home, our community, and it's yours too. And I know we're not as different as you might think or how we might seem. And I know we both just want to do what's best for our community. As such, we need a police force that's actually designed to protect and serve us. We shouldn't have to form our own groups like so in South Hawaii to take care of the shortcomings of our police. We shouldn't have to be scared for our well-being in the presence of HPD because of our skin color. We shouldn't have to testify here today or ever in fear of retaliation from the police. We need to reimagine policing for a better, safer community. And I just want to urge you as a commission to do the community outreach yourself to fully understand why people like myself are so compelled to attend these meetings and to testify here and repeatedly ask for the same things. But we shouldn't have to, especially in such a disturbing time of our lives. We shouldn't have to take the time out of them to testify when we're unable to, which is also why I want to urge you to please read aloud the written testimonies, or at least list the submitted written testimonies aloud when we're unable to orally testify at these meetings because of our own personal lives. Because we deserve to be seen and heard as your fellow civilians, as equals, as members of our shared community. When you decide on the next police chief, and when you welcome the next commissioner, I just want you to know why we push for transparency, accountability, and humanity. I know that you hear us, and I know that you hear me right now, but I plead with you to listen to me and the people who care, because we need you to do what's right. Be transparent and hold officers accountable for taking people's lives, members of our community's lives. There's no justice when someone loses their life, but you have the power to prevent another injustice to our community and give us the answers we deserve. Thank you so much for your time, Commission, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Akion. I'm looking around the room to see if anyone has questions. Seeing none, we appreciate your participation. Thank you so much. And thank you for putting your comments in writing. It really helps us for our record keeping as well. Thank you.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, that concludes our requested telephonic testimony for today. Moving on on our agenda, we move to Chief of Police report. And thank you, Chief Vanek, Assistant Chief Mann, and Assistant Chief Nishibun for joining us here today. Before you start, just would like to give you an opportunity to share some of your priorities or just what your first or second, I guess it's a second day as acting chief is, just with the body. Thank you very much.
So I can tell you that definitely the past 2 days have been very, very busy. It seems at this level, everything is big. But that isn't something that I'm gonna shy away from. I definitely understand my role and my responsibility, not only to the department, but to the community. And I know that I'll do my best to make sure that I get the job done correctly. But as far as priorities go, we haven't figured out obviously all of the details, but I can speak generally as far as what my priorities will be. I'm still definitely working with our command staff, the deputy chiefs, commanders. I want to make sure that they're part of our internal solution. But also, I'd like to reach out to the community. I know I hear a lot of testimony saying that we need to reimagine what policing is like. Well, in my opinion, reimagining is really making the community part of the solution. Getting input from them, finding out what their priorities are, and incorporating that into a strategic plan moving forward as far as what we need to do, not only to make sure that we serve them well, but they get the type of service that they deserve. So definitely externally, what I like to do is focus on crime reduction and prevention. I'd also like to continue to work with our community and create partnerships, and definitely, like I said, get them involved, community involvement. Internally, I'm looking, priorities that I'm looking at is definitely filling our vacancies, and that has very closely ties into creating excellent service. With the amount of vacancies that we have, I mean, we're obviously able to do the job, but by filling those vacancies, we'll be able to do the job better. Not only filling vacancies, but retaining qualified officers. We have quite a number of individuals and employees, not only sworn, but civilian, who can retire. And our civilian staff, I give them kudos. Sometimes they're overlooked, but they are definitely the support and the piece that keeps our department running. They're very, very hardworking, and they work very, very well. Also, I want to manage our overtime. I know that has been an issue in recent years. That's definitely something that I'm taking a look at. How can we not only manage our overtime, but just in general become more fiscally responsible? And finally, our employees are our biggest asset in any company, not just in the department, but any private or public organization. I want to make sure that morale is at the level where it should be. Listen to the concerns of the officers, make sure that we're able to get them the tools and training and resources that they need. Make sure that they're satisfied with their job, so that translates into when they work with the public, they're satisfied, they help them, they provide excellent customer service. So externally, internally, those are some of the priorities that I'd like to focus on moving forward.
Really appreciate that. Open it up to questions or comments. Commissioner Broderick.
Chief, welcome to your first meeting. It's great to have you here. Just on the vacancies, I just want to remind all of us that we have asked for a report at some future meeting.
Yes.
On the statistics that we received regarding vacancies.
Definitely. So I can tell you that at the next police commission meeting, I've already reached out to the commander of our human resources division, and he'll be ready with a report at the next commission meeting.
Thanks so much.
Chief, can you also let us know the vacancies in command and that kind of thing? I mean, not just
Sure.
the.
It will include not only sworn vacancies at the rank of lieutenant and below, but it'll also be vacancies at the rank of captain and above, or in other words, command staff, and also include vacancies regarding civilian employees as well.
Thank you, and welcome aboard to
Thank
all
you.
three of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. See no further questions, we'll open it up for your report.
Okay, so there were some questions that came up at the last meeting. So before I get into any new stuff, I want to address the old stuff. So in regards to Vice Chair Gibson's question, while I was discussing the MCCA Police Reform Working Group recommendations in regards to training, So I just wanted to kind of give an overview and a brief description of some of the in-person training that officers receive on an annual basis and also the online training. So training that they receive on an annual basis in person include control and arrest tactics. Officers learn about excited delirium, how to recognize its symptoms. They also learn various techniques if and when they find themselves in physical confrontation. And they also will be given a review of our use of force policy and the recent updates during that block of instruction. They also receive taser recertification and training. Officers demonstrate the safe and effective operation of the conducted energy weapon, also known as taser, and the loading and reloading of the taser. In addition, they also are required to pass a recertification functional qualification course. They also need to identify the use of the requirements as it applies to the Fourth Amendment. For our EVOC, or Emergency Vehicle Operations course, they do a review. Officers review the motor vehicle pursuit policy. They also are evaluated and tested through various scenario-based exercises. For police officer survival training, also known as POST, officers experience multiple scenarios in the use of force simulator. Scenarios also include escalation and de-escalation and discharging firearms at moving vehicles. That's in regards and relations to our recent policy amendments for use of force. They also go through an annual firearms qualification. They receive training in the manipulation of not only their duty pistols, but also rifle and shotgun. They experience shooting with their non-dominant hand from various positions while moving from cover to cover. They also are required to meet minimum requirements for less lethal shotgun, duty pistol, rifle, and shotgun qualifications. So they receive annual certification for that. Those are just the in-person annual recall trainings. We also have recurring annual online training. So as COVID became more a part of our everyday life, we needed to adjust to still conduct the training, but maybe do it in a more safe manner. So we have a number of different trainings. One is called EPIC, which stands for Ethical Policing is Courageous. It's a course that educates officers to play a meaningful role in policing one another. It teaches officers to intervene and how to stop a wrongful action before it occurs. That's training online that our officers go through annually. Sexual harassment training is all that also. The goal of the class is to ensure that HPD personnel are aware of their individual responsibilities, and it also shows what supervisors are expected to do and how they're supposed to respond to violations of sexual harassment in the workplace and its policy. They go through domestic violence training, a review of domestic violence related policies, and also, in addition, investigative tips and tools when responding to DV related calls for service. They go through also, is it okay to go through all of these? Okay, I know it's lengthy, but I want to make sure that you understand exactly how much training all of our officers go through on an annual basis. They also go through major events training. Topics discussed include the incident command system, which is a nationally based system which helps them to handle very large and organized types of events. All hazard incident management team, hazardous materials, and even natural disaster preparedness as part of their online training. They also go through sexual assault awareness investigation classes. A review of the sex crime investigations policies are conducted. In addition, they also receive investigative tips and tools when responding to sex crime calls for services. Mental illness training topics discussed there include changes and recent updates to the MH1 policy and MH1 procedures, which is a mandatory when police take people into custody and take them for mental health evaluation, MH1. It also goes over HIPAA and law enforcement requirements, responding to suicide by cop calls for services. There's also additional, even though they have in-person training, they also do mandatory online training for use of force. They review the use of force policy and recent updates to include de-escalation, DNR used in deadly force situations only, recent updates to shooting at vehicles, and duty to intervene and non-retaliation. Those are recent updates that they're required to go through annual training on. Also, even though they have in-person review of motor vehicle pursuits, we also have an online review of motor vehicle pursuits. And finally, the bias-based input and implicit bias-based training. So officers receive training on policies related to bias-based profiling and what departmental expectations, the do's and don'ts are regarding bias-based incidents. So those are just some of the in-person and online training. I wanted to also discuss that we'll be moving on July 1st to a new platform, which is through the city's DHR, Department of Human Resources, Honolulu. It's called Honolulu U. And the beauty of Honolulu U is it's not only meant for sworn employees, but also civilian employees. So it's online training platform that is dedicated to the advancement and development of all city employees, including HPD employees. What it does is it maximizes their professional potential by, it's very powerful word, but empowering them with the knowledge and skills to advance their careers and better serve the public. And that's what really caught me is, it's not just for their professional development, but for what they do, which is serving the public. Also, it includes such topics, and it's not just related to just law enforcement for our employees, but it's stuff like supervision, leadership, effective communication, gives human resource information, writing guides even, labor relations, safety courses, customer service, health and wellness. Those are just to name a few. There's a slew of different categories. I signed on. Basically, you say what your interests are, and then they give you like a library of different courses, online things you can take. It's great, you do it at your own pace. You can continue it if you can't do it right away. Not only that, but it tracks it, and you get a certificate when you're done. They test you to make sure you understand the concept. It's a great, great tool. The city did a really good job, and I'm proud to say that we'll be a part of that now with our employees. So that's definitely, I know I spoke earlier about what are some of my priorities, definitely training, making sure our employees, not just sworn but civilian, are properly trained. And this is just one step.
And it's a resource that doesn't cost the department any
Yeah,
additional,
that's
right?
great, that's better. Fiscal management, there you go.
Chief, can I just understand, that first list you went through, the internal HPD training, so every SWAT officer does that every year, is that
That's correct, sir, yes. Yes.
Does Major Lambert do any training on homelessness and that kind of thing?
He does.
And our life safety?
He does, definitely. So Major Lambert is, I would consider one of our subject matter experts internally in those topics. Also, one of our sergeants, acting lieutenants, Dan O'Neill. He is very, very excellent. He has our ONU and our community outreach unit, but very, very skilled and knowledgeable about the different topics regarding homelessness, mental illness. He's testified on behalf of the department for bills that went through the legislature, and also provides classes not only to incumbents, but also recruits.
Very good.
So yeah, very, very involved in our training. Any other questions regarding training before I move on to a different topic?
Could you quantify how many hours of training that is per year?
So the in-person training is a little bit easier to track because they're required to physically be there. And right now that's 16 hours, the 16 hours that I discussed earlier. The other training is because it's online, it's required training. The classes range in time from anywhere from half an hour to even a couple hours. And that's done at the officers or the employees' ability to move forward. So if you add all that up, it could be anywhere from 24, 48, or as long as it takes, but it's just required training that they need to go through.
And then do any of these in-person training sessions involve speakers coming from outside the department too?
So it does. There are certain trainings, for example, the mental illness training. We have also like EPIC training. Those are the two that come to mind.
So I think one of the common themes that we're hearing in the testimony is a narrative that HPD is very insular and the commission only listens to the department and there's nobody sitting in an empty chair
Sure.
representing, so that's what we have testimony for. But it would, I think, be one suggestion might be to have some of the training involving some of the community that you've heard repeatedly wanting to have a seat in the empty chair. or the voice.
Oh, it's funny you say that because you just segued into my next.
Okay, sorry.
No, no, no.
Go ahead.
Excellent. No, perfect. Thank you for introducing that.
Perfect.
So, sorry, any other questions regarding the training? So last Wednesday, we continued our outreach to the Micronesian community. We met with We Are Oceania and the leaders of that group. Discussions included what they felt would be a good starting point to build relationships between the Micronesian community and HPD. And basically education was the consensus. So we're looking at three things. Cultural introduction and an understanding of Micronesian community commanders to be conducted by members of We Are Oceania, so outside instruction. Cultural sensitivity training focusing on the Micronesian community for recruits to possibly start with our next class in August. And also annual recall training for our incumbents. Of course, this isn't something that we can do all at once. We're looking to start with some kind of presentation for our commanders first, maybe later this month, actually in June or early July. We'll continue to work with We Are Oceania on a curriculum for the August recruit class to bring them in as speakers. And lastly, we'll be looking to train our incumbents in an annual recall training, bringing them in to familiarize them with all the different issues and topics regarding the Micronesian community. They're also very open to meeting with other stakeholders for a roundtable discussion, which Acting Deputy Chief Mann is currently and will be working on. And additionally, there was great enthusiasm about possibly collaborating to conduct the youth summit. That was one of the things that they thought would be very helpful. And they would also like to meet again in the near future to discuss the various presentations and trainings that we discussed during the meeting, so we can help develop them in concert, not just in isolation, and make sure we apply them the best way we can to get our employees the best training possible.
Correct.
So thank you for that segue.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions regarding our meeting with We Are Oceania?
Appreciate that update.
And then I have several more topics. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
So, Commissioner Broderick, regarding some of the questions you had, just to follow up on some of the issues. So I did meet with Major Johnson to clarify his statement regarding the correlation between toilet paper being back on the shelves and an increase in drug use on the street. And I think I was correct, and I think my assumption at the time, his reference was regarding the way both goods like toilet paper and also drugs are shipped into or come into the state. So when COVID hit, transportation of supplies into the state, you saw a decline, as so did the supply of illegal drugs. But as we start to see things open back up and transportation of goods rebounded, we also the availability of illegal drugs also saw an increase. So that was a correlation that he was drawing there.
Thank you for the follow-up.
And in regards to your question regarding, do we see an increase in street racing? So the response to that was, we have actually not seen an increase in street racing. However, while there was a decrease in the number of vehicles on the road as things were shutting down, we did see an increase in the number of citations being issued for speeding. And on the other hand, as the city began to open back up, more cars were on the road and the number of citations actually issued for speeding decreased. So basically what that showed us was, taking into consideration we didn't change the way we enforce, basically more traffic resulted in less opportunity for people to speed. And I apologize, I can speak about it anecdotally, this is kind of hot off the press. But I can present this to you later in a commission meeting if you want the exact stats. But beginning of last year, from January to May, and I'll compare it from last year to this year. In January, we gave about 2,500 speeding tickets. So that was kind of as the pandemic was not really in full swing, but kind of getting there. In May of last year, it went from 2,500 to a little over 4,000 speeding citations. You can see we start to issue more citations. Conversely, in January this year, so about 4,700 citations, so still kind of at that level. But now from January to May, now things are starting to open up. It went from 4,700 in February down to 3,100, in March down to 2,100, April 18. So you can see the decrease because now you start seeing more cars on the road. And I live on the west side, and I could definitely tell there's a lot more traffic, takes me a lot longer to get home. You know, you still see people speeding out there on weekends or when there's not as much cars, but that's when, you know, we have our officers out there to enforce to make sure people are following the rules, following the laws. So anecdotally speaking, to answer your question, Commissioner Broderick, we do not see street racing on the increase, but we actually do see less speeders in the form of issuing of speeding citations.
Thank you for the follow-up.
And then also in regards to, so I know this has come up as a topic of interest in the past, so I just wanted to give you an update in regards to our conflict of interest policy. So I can tell you that our professional standards office is currently working on a conflict of interest policy as well as proposed amendments to our standard of conduct policy. However, there's a process that must occur for the proper preparation and eventual adoption of such a policy amendments and or new policy. And I just briefly go over what that process is. So the PSO has to work with our ITD, Information Technology Division, who's in charge of policy, making sure that it's correct, to create the draft for consideration by our Administrative Review Board, ARB. The Administrative Review Board reviews and discusses the proposal and then sends it back to the PSO or the initiator as needed for revision. So when there's discussion, this is good, this isn't good, this needs to change, there's that back and forth. Once subsequent revisions are reviewed and approved by the ARB, the proposal must be provided to the applicable labor unions, and they're given a chance to review with an opportunity to meet and confer. Obviously, there could be some back and forth there between HPD and the applicable unions, depending on whether there are issues that need to be resolved. Once the issues are resolved and the unions sign off, the final draft is prepared by our Information Technology Division for the chief's review and signature. Once the chief signs off, the signed policy is then sent back to ITD and finally scheduled for release and notifications to all of our employees via our daily internet updates. So there is kind of a process that occurs. I cannot give you really a ballpark figure. It really depends on the topic of conversation. If it's a very controversial topic, obviously there's a lot more back and forth. If it's something that's more straightforward, it could be succinct. For something like this, you know, I really don't want to speculate how much time it will be, but just I do want to assure you that it's something that we're working on, and definitely we want to respect the process. Any questions regarding the conflict policy? And then finally, I just wanted to provide you with an update or a little bit information regarding the 2 stabbings that occurred in Waikiki. So these occurred early morning yesterday on the 1st. What I've been told based on the investigation is that they were isolated incidents. Also, they were not, we do not believe that they were connected in any way, so they were separate from each other. Also, an arrest in both cases were made. So we arrested the suspect in both of the cases. I think that is all the information. I know it's a lot, but that's all the information that I have for you today. Do you have any
I
questions?
had a follow-up with respect to the Waikiki incident and that crash that occurred the
Sure.
day before. It's just, I mean, the pictures were so pretty disturbing, but what rate of speed, I don't know if it's still under investigation, but it just looked very, very bad.
So our traffic division did determine that speed was a factor. I'm not sure, I don't know enough to elaborate on whether or not there's still an investigation into that incident. But basically, I think that's my opportunity to really appeal to the public, you gotta slow down. That's what it is. There's no doubt that excessive speed increases the chance for you to get into a very critical accident, and you know, it's unfortunate that occurred.
I'll open it up to other commissioners.
Chief, I think this might be an instance where I speak for the whole commission, and that's in thanking you for your comprehensive follow-up from the issues that came up with the last meeting. It is greatly appreciated. I wanted to, first of all, let me tell you, I'm not going to ask you to do anything now.
No.
It'll be at a future meeting. But I want to reference an article that was in the media, and two of our testifiers made reference to it as well. It's entitled HPD's use of lethal force is near the U.S. average, but there's far more to the story. And what they conclude, and I have no idea whether it's accurate or not, but what they say is an analysis of the data shows that by several measures, Honolulu is near the middle of the pack in the number of killings and shootings per capita, but three differences stand out. One, in a far higher percentage of cases than for the U.S. as a whole, those killed in encounters with HPD officers died from physical restraint or asphyxiation. Two, there were a much higher percentage of cases in which the subject was unarmed. And three, the subjects in these cases are disproportionately Pacific Islanders. I'm not asking you to respond at all now, but I'm hoping that at a future meeting, we can put those items on the agenda and you can share with us your thoughts about those findings, whether in fact they're accurate, and if so, what might explain them.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chin, did you have a?
Sure. So Chief, thank you very much for the report. Great to have you guys down here. Thank you for that. I think just looking at the written testimony, a lot of it, if there's a theme to it, is talking about like a demand for the release of the names of the officers who were involved in the SICAP shooting or the Miami shooting. So if that's something you're able to answer right now or later, to be able to look into, like what is the reason why those officer names are not released? Because clearly there's a large number of people who are writing in to say that should happen. So that would be one thing. And then I think the other thing is the other theme that I think I was hearing from the testimony had to do with just people wanting to know the status of the SICAP investigation or the Miami investigation, whether or not it was going to, whether it's with the prosecutor's office now or with another independent board, so with another independent investigator other than HPD. I understand that that's something that's important to the public. They or at least the people who are writing in and testifying, they sure will always want to know what the status is.
Yes.
And so I think even though it seems like we continue to ask those questions, I think it's right, given the way that people are asking these questions, to at least be able to provide a status update. So it keeps it top of mind for you as well as the leadership in terms of making sure that the department is doing what's right.
Definitely. So I can provide a response to actually both of those.
Okay, great.
So in regards to, let me take one at a time. So where we are in the investigation and working with the prosecutor's office, we're actually continuing to work with the prosecutor's office on all three recent shootings. The one with, I remember, with Mr. Miani, and also the most recent one in the Kaligi area. So that investigation is ongoing. We're continuing to receive requests from the prosecutor's office, and we continue to turn over information as it's being requested. In regards to the other question regarding the release of information, namely the release of officers' names. So what I can tell you is that, as we continue to work with the prosecutor's office, until such time that the investigation is complete and a decision is rendered whether the shootings, officer-involved shootings are justified or not, detailed information will continue to remain held in confidence to avoid possible frustration of the investigation. However, after which time that information or that determination is made, then of course that's a different story. Release of the information then would not frustrate the investigation, which at that time discussion could be had on whether or not we would release the information at that time. But really out of respect for the process of the investigation, of the people involved, victims, we want to make sure that the investigation is very thorough, very complete. The process is respected, and we don't want to by maybe the premature release of information, jeopardize that in any way. So,
Thank you. Commissioner Perry?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I completely understood it right, but it seemed like somebody released some body-worn camera footage related to the Skycap issue, or tragedy really. Can you comment on what happened there and where it might have come from and why, how that can happen?
I can tell you that that wasn't something that our department released. As far as where it came from, I'll confirm that it wasn't from us. It wasn't something that was department sanctioned.
So it was a leak, is what you're saying?
Possibly, but we weren't the only ones with copies of the video.
So is there some sort of investigation as to?
I can confirm that there is an investigation into the video being released. That would be a violation of our HPD policy.
Thank you.
I have a question, Chief,
Sure.
with respect to BWC policy. Is the department willing to look at its own internal policy as to how it releases video? Because we have gotten a preview from the council that has indicated that they may be interested, or even the state legislature, of mandating or putting some type of, I guess, qualifications as to when body-worn camera footage would be released. So my question to you, is the department willing to look into their own policy to see if they can look at other jurisdictions or best practices that it could possibly mirror or consider, before any necessary legislation is needed? And also allow the commission to participate in any of that adoption process of any internal rules, and the public. I'm just asking because it is, like the Commissioner Chin mentioned, top of mind for community. So I'm not sure if the department is willing to take a look at that.
Sure, I can actually tell you that we're already looking at it. As far as looking at our body-worn camera policy in regards to basically coming out with a rule of when it's releasable. So instead of deciding, well, we'll release this one, we won't release this one, basically it's a rule. At this point of the investigation, or at this point, this is when we release it. Prior to that, we won't, but after that, if we have a request, we will. That way there's no kind of, well, do we, don't we? Once we write it into policy, of course, we want to make sure that we follow all applicable laws. We don't want to release things when we're not supposed to, or not release things when we should, you know what I mean? So those are all the types of things that we're taking into consideration as we're looking at and revising our body-worn camera policy. But I can confirm with you that we're already looking at it, and definitely I will keep you updated as to what the progress is regarding that.
That would be really helpful, and I think it's mainly because of what you just mentioned, the inconsistency of the release. Commissioner Chin.
So I think that's a very constructive thing to do, because I think that kind of measure will avoid some sort of rule that comes down that might not be exactly what all of law enforcement wants, because they didn't think through all the ramifications. Or a court decision. I mean, I think there's other things that you would come externally that you could probably cure with your own internal policy. So that would be good. And then I think the other thing is that I totally understand the whole statement about, we don't want to frustrate this investigation and we need to respect the process. And I actually know, because being in law enforcement previously, as prosecutor or being at the Attorney General's, then it was always I know 10 years ago, you could say something like that and everyone would be like, great, do your thing, we will wait patiently. But I think what's happening now is it's 2021, and that's just the reality, is that I think, people just have a different expectation,
There's a shift,
different feelings about the police. I don't think that's something to feel bad about or anything. It's just the reality, and so I appreciate any efforts that the leadership does to really react, or to just be aware of what that we're in 2021 and it's a different time, and the public has a different expectation.
Sure.
So appreciate that effort.
Should I pick up on that? So just maybe a couple sentences behind, because I'm old. 2021 is, but, so I just wanna just explain in my head what compromised investigation means.
Mhm.
Because I feel like a rushed investigation doesn't serve the victim or the victim's family either.
Yeah.
So a compromised investigation means something that might be prosecutable
Mhm.
or a crime will be a flawed prosecution, a flawed investigation trail so that there's no verdict or there's no sanction for the conduct that was actually criminal. So there's a reason, notwithstanding the social media and the need to put information out there, I totally understand that and agree. I think people should understand that there's a reason why we try to do it, why people try to do thorough investigations, whether it's employment or police or whatever, is to make sure that whatever happens at the end of it can be upheld
Yes.
for the long term.
Actually, thank you for that articulate explanation. That was very, very good.
It's in my head. And I just wanted to confirm one more thing. So the policy process that you laid out was the process that the use of force, vascular neck restraint.
Yeah.
Okay, that really helped because now we understand.
Yeah.
Richard would ask every week, hey, what's the status? Now we know it was somewhere in between ARB, PSO.
You have a
Yeah.
commissioner who actually kind of
Right.
participated in the
Right.
process.
But
Yeah.
Chief, could you, so that it doesn't go into a black hole, could you periodically update us
Sure.
on where the conflict of policy is in that sequence that you outlined?
Sure.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner, are you done?
Done, thank you.
Anything further for Chief Bannock? Thank you very much, Chief, for that report. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes for the open session of May 5th, 2021.
I would move for the approval of minutes for the open session of May 5, 2021.
Any discussion? Seeing none? Oh, is there?
No.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes of the open session for May 5th by roll call, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair.
Aye.
Commissioners Okinaga.
Aye.
Chin.
Aye.
Perry.
Aye.
And Broderick.
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. Moving on to new business, resolution thanking Chief Ballard for her many years of service to the city and county of Honolulu. All of you should have received a copy of Resolution 2101, drafted by our own Commissioner Okinaga. Thank you very much for putting this together. I would just like to highlight some of the clauses that just highlight Chief's accomplishment, Chief Ballard's accomplishment. Whereas Chief Ballard began her career with HPD in 1985, and she has served our community with honor and distinction for more than 35 years, working in a wide range of field and administrative assignments, including the narcotics vice in downtown Chinatown Patrol District, and as a commander, she led the Kaneohe and Kalihi Patrol Districts, and the Finance, Training, and Central Receiving Divisions before being appointed to the Chief of Police. Whereas, under her leadership, the department has worked diligently to be transparent through implementation of body-worn camera program, as well as a revamped departmental website with crime mapping statistics. Whereas, under her leadership, the department has implemented and refreshed innovative programs to serve different needs in our community, including the homeless outreach and navigation for unsheltered persons. And the second to the last clause, whereas the commission wishes to express its gratitude for Chief Ballard's leadership and service, for the command staff ensuring continuity of leadership and operations, and for the ongoing work of the sworn and unsworn personnel of the Honolulu Police Department. With that, open it up for further discussion with respect to the resolution. Or perhaps before we go into the discussion, if there is a motion to approve the resolution.
To make a motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, if I could call for the approval of the resolution by roll call. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair.
Aye.
Commissioners Okinaga.
Aye.
Chin.
Aye.
Perry.
Aye.
And Broderick.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. We will be providing a resolution to Chief Ballard and just congratulate her on her over 35 years of service. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, report on actions taken at the April 7th and 19th, 2021 executive session.
Chair, I'm gonna give the report on
Okay.
the actions taken at the
Thank you.
the March 17th. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay.
During the executive session of March 17th, 2021, commissioners.
Sorry, April.
April 7th
Yeah,
and
is that right?
19th.
Sorry, wrong one.
Thank you very much for accommodating us.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
During the executive session of April 7, 2021, commissioners approved the March 3rd, 2021 executive session minutes and took action on 4 complaints involving 4 complainants and 3 officers. HPC number 20-112 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. The complaint of overbearing conduct was not sustained. The complaint of threatening was sustained. HPC number 20-117 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. The complaints of discourtesy, name, badge number, and discourtesy, intimidation were not sustained. HPC number 20-119 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. Complaints of discourtesy, harsh remarks, and discourtesy, name, badge number were not sustained. HPC number 21-002 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. The complaint of discourtesy, name, badge number was not sustained. The complaints of discourtesy, disparaging remarks, and overbearing conduct were sustained. During the executive session of April 19, 2021, commissioners took action on 4 complaints involving 4 complainants and 5 officers. HPC number 20-116 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. The complaint of conduct unbecoming an officer was not sustained. HPC number 21-001 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. The complaints of discourtesy, disparaging remarks, and discourtesy, name, badge number were sustained. HPC number 21-004 involved 1 complainant and 2 officers. The officers were exonerated of the complaints of excessive use of force and discourtesy harassment. HPC number 21-010 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. The complaints of discourtesy, name, badge number, and threatening were not sustained. The Commission also accepted the recommendation of the Executive Officer and closed HPC number 21-007 and HPC number 21-023 without further investigation pursuant to the Honolulu Police Commission Rule 9-1B. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the reports.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Perry seconded. Any discussion? Thank you so much, Commissioner Chin, for that recitation. With that, we'll take a roll call vote for approval of the report on actions taken at the April 7 and 19, 2021 executive sessions. Roll call, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga?
Aye.
Commissioner Chin? Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
And Commissioner Broderick?
Aye.
Thank you very much, motion carries. Moving on to unfinished business, selection process for next Chief of Police. An update from the staff and myself? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
On Sunday, the advertisement for the Chief of Police for HPD was on the Star Advertiser and on this website. And the contact information is there for all applicants who are interested to contact the Police Commissioner Office and to receive a link on the email to apply for the Chief of Police position. The closing date, I believe, June 29th. I do not have the ad with me right now, but, so it's been a very busy Tuesday, Wednesday. We expected to receive calls the rest of the week. In addition to that, I'd like to thank the City and County Department of Human Services and Bureau of Fiscal Services for all the hard work in making the vacancy announcements and doing the paperwork for the consultant. The application has been released on the website, the advertisements, as well as for the psychologist. which I have copies, printed out from the website.
June 30.
June 30 is a closing
June
date,
30th,
right?
yes, I stand corrected, thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Officer Yuen. Any further questions? I think I just wanted to just thank again, you know, we talked about the civilian staff of HPD, but the civilian staff of the City and County of Honolulu have really stepped up for us. Department of Human Resources and Budget and Fiscal Services have gone out of their way to assist us to meet this June 1 deadline, and I just wanted to express a huge thanks to them. You know, they're running this City and County of Honolulu, but they made this a priority because of the importance of ensuring we are able to meet our charge of hiring the next chief of police. So I just wanted to thank also the staff of HPC for making this a priority. And as Jim mentioned, all of the information is not only on our website, the Honolulu Police Commission, but also on the Budget and Fiscal Services website with respect to the request for qualifications of professional services. So if there are any firms that are interested in assisting us with the hiring of the chief of police, please find information on the website. The closing date as well is running concurrently, June 30th. So we are on track with respect to our timeline. And with that, I open it up to any questions for either Jim or other staff or myself. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Did you say you have the psychologist on board, Jim?
No, the advertisement came out.
Oh, okay.
It has been out on the city website.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, did we approach consultants, or were we just putting it on, posting it?
Putting it out there, but also if there's anyone that knows of interested consultants, please provide the information to Erin, who will then provide it to BFS to reach out to those firms directly. We do not want to have any direct contact with any consultants because of the, you know, rules with respect to procurement, and keep it very clean as to who communicates with these firms. Okay.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
It's a little political, but I noticed the mayor has said in several articles that he wants to be involved in the process, and I was just wondering if you could talk about what role that is and how he plays a role.
I can speak from the historical process that they used in the past, and my understanding is that through the consultant, they would reach out to different stakeholders, which would include the mayor, the Honolulu City Council, other community leaders, nonprofits. So that would be the engagement that the consultant would do with the mayor's office as well, and get feedback as to his expectations of the next candidate or potential chief of police. And that would be how he would be engaging. That's a thought, but I mean, this is all a process that we can talk with the consultant if there's any changes that you would want to bring forward. Yes.
Well, from what I've seen, he said it once, and the media keeps repeating it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but I don't know, and I'm very sure that he should be part of our other stakeholders, city council, definitely should be part of that stakeholder engagement process, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and with that, we'll move on our agenda. We have Executive Officer's Report next.
Thank you, Chair. As of today, we have a total of 40 registered complaints. One for the month of June. May, we have 7. Of the 40, there's currently 8 that remain pending. The personnel report, the third investigator position is still under review at the managing director's office. And then this completes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Yuen?
That question, but I just want to note that the complaints, you know, we always jinx ourselves, but way down. So I don't know what to attribute that to, because we definitely are opening back up, so I don't know what to make of these data points, but to the extent that that's a positive one, just wanted to note it.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, executive session. Who has the honor today? Oh, okay.
Okay. I think point of personal privilege, just because it was reported in the media, is I just wanted to acknowledge Deputy Chief McCarthy's announcement and thank him for his service as well.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
But we have no way of processing that, but if he's listening, just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Okinaga. Appreciate that.
I'm going to read super fast. The following agenda items will be reviewed in executive session pursuant to HRS 92-5A subsections 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. To consider the hire, evaluation, dismissal, or discipline of an officer or employee, or of charges brought against the officer or employee, or consideration of matters affecting privacy will be involved. To consult with its attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities. To investigate proceedings regarding criminal misconduct. To consider sensitive matters related to public safety or security. To deliberate or make a decision upon a matter that requires the consideration of information that must be kept confidential pursuant to state or federal law or court order. During this meeting, there may be discussion with the Chief of Police and his staff regarding internal strategies and sensitive criminal investigation matters relating to public safety that disclosure could significantly risk the circumvention of law and undermine the effectiveness of the public's protection by the police. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, by roll call, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga?
Aye.
Commissioner Chin?
Aye.
Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
And Commissioner Broderick?
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. But before we cut off from the WebEx feed, we just wanted to make an announcement that the commission's next meeting will be on June 23rd, rather than the pre-scheduled third Wednesday of the month due to scheduling. So we just want to inform the public of that change. Any discussion with respect to the date? Okay, seeing none, we will be in executive session, and thank you, members of the public, for joining us.